Chapter 1. The Clan Shadows. The city of Duskborn was a place of contrasts, where shadows clung to the streets even in daylight, and opulence gleamed behind wrought iron gates. To most, it was a thriving metropolis pulsing with wealth, history, and a culture so refined it seemed untouchable. But beneath the glittering skyline and the old stone spires lurked secrets whispered only among the most ancient bloodlines. Secrets of wolves who walked as men, bound together in clans that stretched back to the dawn of time. And at the heart of it all, one family ruled above the rest, the Duskborns. Lucian Duskborn stood at the balcony of the ancestral manor that loomed on the city's outskirts, its Gothic towers rising high above the mist-covered hills. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with hair dark as midnight and eyes that glowed faintly gold when the moonlight caught them. Power radiated from him in quiet waves, the kind of presence that made others step aside without a word. Tonight, however, his expression was less of command and more of contemplation. The full moon hung fat and silver above the horizon, tugging at the beast within, and though he kept his control, he felt its call deep in his bones. Inside the manor, chandeliers flickered with warm light, casting long shadows across halls lined with portraits of ancestors whose gazes seemed to follow every step. Guests had filled the grand ballroom, wealthy elites from the human world mingling unknowingly with those who bore the wolf's blood. The Duskborns had always mastered the art of disguise, hiding their claws behind velvet gloves and their feral hunger behind polite smiles. It was how they remained at the pinnacle of both worlds. Selene Vera moved gracefully through the crowd, her long dark hair flowing like a river down her back, her gown catching every shimmer of light. She had an elegance that turned heads, but it was her eyes, storm gray and endlessly deep, that held people captive. To the untrained eye, she was merely a guest of distinction, a woman whose beauty belonged in whispered rumors. But those who knew saw the quiet strength in her bearing, the unspoken weight she carried as someone chosen for more than appearances. She felt the call of destiny, even if she could not yet name it. On the far side of the room, Seraphina Veyron entered like a flame given form. Her hair burned red beneath the crystal light, her gown a deep crimson that clung to her figure as though fire itself had chosen her as its vessel. Unlike Selene's calm, Seraphina exuded intensity, eyes sharp, lips curved in a knowing smile. Every step she took seemed deliberate, a declaration of her presence. Where Selene invited wonder, Seraphina demanded attention, and she reveled in it. Lucian's gaze flickered between the two women, each embodying a different kind of power, each stirring something inside him that the wolf within recognized but his human restraint sought to deny. The room seemed smaller when both were near, as though fate had woven them into the same thread of destiny, a thread that now wound tightly around him. The music swelled, violins rising in a haunting waltz. Lucian descended the staircase, each step measured, commanding, and when he entered the ballroom, silence rippled outward in waves. He was the heir of the Duskborn clan, its strength and future embodied in his every stride. To humans, he was a wealthy nobleman, with an aura that unsettled yet fascinated. To his clan, he was Alpha in waiting, bound to lead them into an uncertain future where old traditions clashed with modern life. He reached Selene first. She bowed her head slightly, an instinctive gesture of respect, though she masked it as a polite acknowledgement. Their hands brushed as he greeted her, a fleeting contact that carried the spark of something ancient, something binding. Her breath caught, though she quickly recovered, her calm facade never faltering. Then Seraphina's laughter cut through the air like a flame through darkness. She moved closer, placing herself deliberately between them, her gaze locking onto Lucian's with a heat that could have burned away the silence. "Lucian," she said, her voice low, velvet-edged with steel. "You disappear onto balconies and leave your guests to wonder if the night has lost its host." His lips curved faintly, though his golden eyes betrayed nothing. A host must sometimes observe before he leads. "Or perhaps," Seraphina countered, tilting her head, "you were searching for something. Or someone." Her glance flickered briefly toward Selene, then back to him, the challenge clear. The tension between the three hung thick, a silent storm brewing beneath the glittering chandeliers. Around them, the humans laughed, danced, drank champagne, and whispered secrets they thought mattered. They were oblivious to the deeper currents flowing through the room, currents that would decide the fate of more than just one clan. Outside, the howl of a wolf echoed across the hills. Lucian felt it resonate within his chest, a reminder that the night was not theirs alone. Shadows stirred in the distance, shadows belonging to those who would see the Duskborns fall, and as the night deepened, Lucian knew that the choices made here, in this hall of glass and light, would ripple far beyond the walls of the manor. Chapter 2. Shadows in the city dawn bled slowly into the city of Duskborn, staining its skyline in hues of rose and gold. Yet, within Ravenwood Estate, the air remained heavy, the weight of the council's warnings still clinging like mist. Lucian had not slept. Instead, he lingered in his study, where shelves of leather-bound tomes and maps of the clan's lands stretched around him like silent sentinels. A decanter of brandy lay untouched at his elbow. He sat in the high-backed chair, staring at nothing, his thoughts circling the same words, prophecy, fate, and the gnawing certainty that both were chains tightening around his throat. The sound of the door opening broke his reverie. His younger sister, Selene Ravenwood, slipped inside. Barely 20, she bore the same golden eyes as her brother, though hers carried a spark of mischief that softened their sharpness. Dressed in a flowing robe, her raven hair tumbled down her back, unbrushed and wild. "You didn't come to bed," she said, her voice light but tinged with concern. Lucian gave her a faint smile. "Sleep is for those who do not carry the world on their shoulders." Selene rolled her eyes and perched on the arm of his chair. "You sound just like father. Brooding, dramatic, impossible to talk to." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Tell me what really troubles you. Is it Valeria again, or the whispers of prophecy?" Lucian hesitated. His sister had always seen through him, though he often wished she didn't. "It is both. Valeria plays her own games, and I fear father encourages them. And as for the prophecy..." He paused, his gaze fixed on the window where the pale light of dawn glimmered. "What if my heart chooses wrongly, Selene? What if love becomes the downfall of this clan?" Selene's lips curved in a sly smile. "Then perhaps you should avoid love altogether. Though I doubt the fates will make it so easy for you." She squeezed his hand briefly before standing. "Whatever comes, brother, you will not face it alone." When she left, silence reclaimed the study. But it was a silence fractured by the faint rustle of wings outside. Lucian turned sharply and caught sight of a raven perched on the windowsill, its feathers shimmering like obsidian, its eyes unnaturally bright. A shiver passed through him. Ravens had always been omens to his people, messengers of the unseen, and this one, staring so intently, felt like a warning. Meanwhile, in the heart of Duskborn, Selene Vera moved through the labyrinth of the university library, her arms full of manuscripts. Her mind replayed the words she had uncovered the night before, every syllable a spark against her imagination. The House of Ravenwood. Their Alpha's heart shall decide the fate of all wolves. It sounded like legend, yet her instincts whispered otherwise. Myths carried truth, hidden, disguised, but truth nonetheless. Her closest friend, Amara, caught up to her near the exit. Amara was tall, sharp-tongued, her auburn hair tied back in a no-nonsense knot. She eyed Selene's papers with mild exasperation. "Tell me you didn't spend the whole night buried in those dusty relics again." Selene laughed softly. "I did. And I found something big. The Ravenwoods, Amara. They're not just an old family with a fancy name, they're connected to the old myths. I can feel it." Amara groaned. "Selene, you're brilliant, but sometimes I think your brain is wired for ghost stories. The Ravenwoods are just rich aristocrats, the kind that buys up half the city and pretends they own the rest. Nothing more." But Selene shook her head, her eyes alight with conviction. "No, there's more. I know it." She glanced at the morning sky through the tall glass windows. For a brief moment she thought she saw something. Two golden eyes glimmering faintly in the reflection. She blinked, and it was gone. At Ravenwood Estate, the day unfolded with the rhythm of both business and secrecy. Servants moved quietly through the halls, their eyes lowered, for they knew the truth of their masters and had sworn oaths of silence. In the courtyard, Valeria Veyron strolled with calculated poise, her gown whispering against the stone. She had overheard enough of the council's meeting to sense opportunity. If Lucian was to inherit, she would secure her place at his side, not through affection, but through power. Her emerald eyes glittered with ambition as she considered the rival clans, the looming threat of humans, and the prophecy that could either crown her or cast her into ruin. That evening, as the sun slipped beyond the horizon, Lucian found himself drawn to the forest again. He shifted beneath the moonlight, the transformation seamless, his body folding into that of his wolf. The wind carried scents both familiar and strange, yet one in particular halted him in his tracks. It was faint, delicate, but unlike anything he had ever known. A fragrance of rain on stone, of parchment and ink, of quiet fire. He did not know it belonged to Selene Vera, nor that she, in her own restless way, was even now following threads that would lead her straight to him, and far beyond, in the darkness at the edge of the woods, red eyes glowed. The Bloodfangs were watching. They had no interest in prophecy or love, only in war. For them, the Ravenwoods were prey, and the time to strike was coming soon. Chapter 3. Duskborn. The night air was thick with tension, carrying the weight of secrets unspoken. The grand halls of Duskborn Manor had grown quieter after the revelry of the evening, yet within its walls, shadows whispered of things to come. Lucian stood by the balcony, his gaze fixed on the forest stretching endlessly beyond the stone battlements. The moonlight silvered his dark hair, highlighting the sharp angles of his face. A visage of strength, but also of conflict. He had thought himself unshakable, forged in duty and tradition, but Selene's presence gnawed at his defenses. Her laughter still lingered in the halls like a ghost, unsettling him in ways 1,000 battles never could. He could sense her somewhere in the manor, her heartbeat like a drumbeat echoing in his chest, calling him toward a fate he dared not embrace. Elsewhere, Seraphina moved through the corridors like a shadow draped in crimson silk. Her beauty was unearthly, her presence commanding. Every servant's eyes lowered as she passed, for Seraphina was not just the heir's sister, she was the flame that lit fear and admiration in equal measure. Yet tonight, her stride carried a storm beneath its grace. She had seen the way Lucian looked at Selene, and though she smiled at the revelers earlier, her heart had hardened to ice. Desire, jealousy, and pride warred within her, each whispering that love was not hers to lose. Far beyond the manor walls, in the depths of the forest, another force stirred. The Bloodfangs, long silent, gathered under the crimson glow of their own sacred fire. Their leader, Kalen, a wolf of unyielding brutality, raised his scarred hand to the night. His eyes burned with hatred for the Duskborn, his voice thundering with promises of blood and conquest. The air trembled with the growl of his pack, and though their numbers were fewer, their fury was boundless. They would strike soon, not for honor, but for vengeance. Back at the manor, the fates of three hearts began to entwine ever tighter. Selene found herself wandering the moonlit gardens, drawn to the roses that bloomed unnaturally under the silver glow. She did not hear Lucian approach until his shadow mingled with hers. For a moment, silence bound them, heavy and fragile, broken only by the quiet rustle of leaves. His eyes, golden with restrained longing, met hers, and the world seemed to still. "Selene," he breathed, her name a confession and a warning all at once. Her lips parted, and for the first time she dared to look at him not as the heir to Duskborn, but as the man who haunted her every thought. "Lucian, you shouldn't be here," she whispered, though her body leaned toward him as if betraying her own words. His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek, trembling with the urge to touch, yet terrified of what that touch might unravel. The distance between them felt like fire, burning, unrelenting. Their breaths mingled, and for a heartbeat it seemed the universe itself conspired to bring them closer. "I cannot stop myself," he confessed in a low voice, thick with yearning. "When you are near, every law I was raised to uphold falters." Selene's pulse quickened. She could feel the truth of his struggle, the war between duty and desire raging in his soul. Her fingers brushed against his, tentative yet electric, sending shivers down them both. For that fleeting moment the world was theirs, fragile and infinite. But before lips could meet, before the fire could consume them, Seraphina's voice cut through the night like a blade. "Lucian!" she called from the garden's edge, her smile poised but her eyes sharp as glass. "Our guests speak of your absence." The tension snapped, leaving Selene with a shiver, Lucian with a wound of silence, and Seraphina with triumph veiled in elegance. Yet beneath their fragile dance of desire and restraint, the winds of war whispered louder. The house of Duskborn stood on the edge of destiny, and neither love nor loyalty would remain untested in the nights to come. Chapter 4. The kiss that burns the manor slept, but desire never did. In the heart of night the halls of Duskborn were bathed in silver light, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe. Lucian wandered restlessly, his chest heavy with a hunger that no battle or feast could quiet. His every thought returned to Selene, the way her eyes held both fire and innocence, the way her presence stripped him bare of the armor he had worn his whole life. He found her again, though he had not meant to. Selene stood at the grand library's window, her fingers tracing the glass as though she might reach through it to the stars beyond. She turned at his approach, her lips parting, a faint tremor in her breath. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them was louder than words, filled with the rhythm of two hearts beating wildly against the chains of restraint. "You followed me," Selene said at last, her voice a whisper tinged with accusation, though her eyes betrayed a secret hope. Lucian's jaw clenched. "Or perhaps it is fate that leads me to you again. Every step I take seems to end where you are." She looked away, but not before he caught the flicker of longing in her gaze. The moonlight softened her, wrapping her in a glow that made her seem less mortal, more dream. Lucian stepped closer, the scent of her roses clinging faintly to her skin, intoxicating him more than wine or blood ever could. "Selene," he murmured, his voice raw. "Tell me to stop, and I will." Her breath shivered, the words caught in her throat. She should say it, she knew she should, but her body betrayed her. Instead of retreat, she lifted her chin, daring him closer. His hand rose, brushing her cheek this time without hesitation. The touch was fire and solace at once, and she leaned into it, eyes fluttering shut. His lips found hers slowly, almost reverently, as though afraid the moment might shatter. But once it began, restraint burned away. The kiss deepened, fierce with all the hunger they had denied. Selene's hands clutched at his chest, feeling the pounding of his heart beneath. Lucian's arm slipped around her waist, pulling her against him as though she belonged nowhere else but there. Time unraveled. The world shrank until it was only them, locked in a dangerous bliss. Yet even in the sweetness, shadows lingered. Beyond the library's doors, unseen eyes might be watching, and the fragile thread of fate trembled with the weight of consequence. When they finally parted, breathless and shaken, Lucian pressed his forehead against hers. "If loving you destroys me," he whispered, "then let me burn." Selene's reply was barely more than a breath. "Then we burn together." In that vow, unspoken yet undeniable, their fates were sealed tighter than any law or blood oath, and outside the library walls, the night itself seemed to hold its breath, for love had crossed a line it could never retreat from. Chapter 5. Shadows of Jealousy. The morning after their kiss, the manor stirred with uneasy energy. Dawn spilled across Duskborn's ancient halls, gilding the marble floors and heavy draperies in muted light, but neither Lucian nor Selene felt the comfort of day. The memory of the night before clung to them, sweet, intoxicating, dangerous. Every stolen glance across the breakfast table, every brush of a hand too near, burned with the weight of secrecy. Yet not all eyes were blind. Seraphina saw, she always saw. Seated at the far end of the long oak table, her golden hair cascading like fire in the morning light, she watched Lucian lean too close when Selene spoke, saw the way his lips curved with a softness he had never shown anyone else. The sight sliced through her like a blade. Fury rose in her throat, but she swallowed it down, her smile sharp and cold as glass. "Selene?" Seraphina purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I trust you slept well. These halls can be overwhelming for someone new. Dreams have a way of unsettling the unprepared." Selene stiffened, her spoon clinking faintly against her bowl. She offered a polite nod, masking her discomfort. The night was kind, the moon keeps no secrets. Seraphina's eyes narrowed, though her smile never faltered. "How poetic. Tell me, cousin, did the moon also keep you company, or did someone else?" The words hung heavy in the air. Lucian's jaw tightened, his gaze snapping to Seraphina with quiet warning. "Enough." His tone was low, but it carried a growl beneath it, the wolf within stirred by anger. The table fell silent. Even the servants, usually invisible in their duties, slowed with cautious steps. Seraphina only laughed lightly, though her hands trembled beneath the table. "Oh, brother," she murmured, eyes glinting, "I only tease." But her heart burned. She had always believed Lucian would be hers. Not by choice, perhaps, but by fate, by the unspoken laws of bloodlines and legacy. And now this mortal woman, with her soft words and stolen glances, threatened to unravel everything. The rest of the morning was a battlefield of unspoken words. Every corridor seemed to hum with tension. Selene tried to keep her steps light, her voice steady when servants greeted her, but she could feel Seraphina's eyes on her even when the woman was not present. Shadows seemed to lengthen in the halls, and every flicker of movement set Selene's heart pounding. Later, in the solitude of her chambers, Seraphina's mask cracked. She paced before her mirror, fury simmering in her veins. Her reflection stared back. Perfect, beautiful, untouchable, and yet she felt hollow. She gripped the edge of her vanity until her knuckles whitened. She would not be cast aside. If Lucian thought to defy destiny, then destiny would strike back, with her hand guiding it. Meanwhile, Lucian found Selene in the rose garden, where the air was heavy with scent and silence. The garden sprawled like a dreamscape, velvet petals glistening with dew, thorned vines winding along marble arches, fountains murmuring softly. It should have been a sanctuary. Instead, it felt like forbidden ground. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. His touch was firm, desperate, as though he feared she might vanish if he let go. "She suspects," he whispered. His voice, usually steady, carried an edge of dread. "Seraphina will not rest until she tears us apart." Selene met his eyes, fear flickering there but also determination. "Then let her come. I'd rather face her fury than live one more day pretending I don't want you." The words caught Lucian off guard, his breath stalling as though her courage had shaken the very ground beneath him. Slowly he leaned closer, pressing his forehead against hers. "You don't understand how dangerous she can be. Her jealousy runs as deep as her ambition. She will use everything, her beauty, her influence, her cunning, and if that fails, she will turn to darker means." Selene's voice trembled but did not falter. "Then I will not fear her, because I have you." Lucian's chest tightened, his wolf clawing at the surface with a primal urge to protect her. He brushed his thumb along her cheek, memorizing her softness, as if etching it into his very soul. "If anything happens to you," he began, but the words broke apart, unfinished. His arms drew her against him instead, strong and unyielding. The roses around them swayed in the morning breeze as though the garden itself bore witness to their vow. But above them, unseen, a raven perched on the stone wall, its black eyes gleaming. Seraphina's spies were already watching, and so the love that burned brighter each day now cast shadows longer and darker than ever before. Somewhere deep in the manor, Seraphina's laughter echoed faintly, though she was nowhere near. The game had begun, and in this game of love and power, blood would be the final wager. Chapter 6. Fire Beneath the Veil. The manor seemed quieter that evening, yet its silence was deceptive, like the hush before a storm. Shadows stretched long across Duskborn's stone corridors, candlelight flickering against high walls that had seen centuries of secrets. But none as perilous as the one blossoming now between Lucian and Selene. They had stolen away to the library, a sanctuary of dust and velvet, where shelves towered with forgotten tomes. The scent of old parchment mingled with the faint perfume of Selene's hair as she stood close to him, too close, her breath shallow with unspoken yearning. Lucian's hand hovered at her waist, hesitant yet desperate, his eyes fixed on her lips as though he had already surrendered. "Lucian," she whispered, the name trembling on her tongue, a plea and a warning all at once. He silenced her with a kiss, deeper and fiercer than the first they had shared. It was a kiss that devoured restraint, one that carried the hunger of his wolf and the ache of his human heart. Selene clung to him, her fingers curling in his shirt as though she might anchor herself in him, drown willingly in the storm he stirred. When they finally parted, breathless and trembling, Lucian pressed his forehead to hers. "You undo me," he confessed, his voice raw. "Every second I fight myself, and every second I lose to you." Selene's cheeks flushed, her lips swollen with his kiss. "Then stop fighting," she whispered. "I don't want the battle. I want you." His answer was another kiss, slower this time, tender as though he were memorizing her mouth. His hands moved along the curve of her back, pressing her closer, until Selene could feel the steady thrum of his heartbeat against her chest. Their bodies leaned into each other with a desperate need that words could no longer satisfy. Lucian drew back just enough to look at her, his eyes burning with desire. "If I hold you any longer, I may not let go." "Then don't," Selene murmured, her voice like silk unraveling. Her hands slid to his shoulders, then to the strong line of his jaw. "Don't let go tonight." The library wrapped around them like a cocoon. They sank into the corner of a velvet couch, his arm enveloping her as though she were meant to fit there. Every glance, every brush of their skin carried the weight of everything they were not supposed to feel, and yet could no longer deny. Lucian tucked a stray lock of her hair behind her ear, lingering at her cheek. "You're dangerous, Selene. More dangerous to me than any war I've fought." She smiled softly, though her eyes shimmered with vulnerability. "Then let me be your only battle worth losing." His chest tightened, his wolf pacing inside him, urging him to claim her, to seal her scent into his skin. He kissed her again, slower and deeper, until she gasped against his lips. The air around them felt alive, humming with the forbidden electricity of their closeness. Outside the library's half-open doors, Seraphina watched. Her nails bit into the wood of the frame, her breath sharp and shallow as she beheld the scene within. Every kiss, every tender word, tore through her composure until fury burned through her veins. She had once envied Selene's beauty. Now she despised it. Stepping back into the corridor, her face returned to its perfect mask of serenity. The rage inside her would remain hidden, coiled like a serpent waiting for the strike. But her thoughts burned with cruel clarity. If Selene believes she can claim Lucian's heart, she will learn what it means to lose everything. Later that night, Lucian escorted Selene back to her chamber. He lingered in the doorway, reluctant to leave her. Their fingers brushed in parting, sparking warmth that neither wanted to release. "Sleep," he said softly, though his own mind was restless. "Tomorrow will bring enough trials. Tonight, let us have this." Selene smiled faintly, her eyes shining with the glow of a woman who had tasted forbidden love. "Good night, Lucian." He left her with his chest heavy yet alive in ways he had never known. But as the door closed between them, another set of eyes remained fixed upon Selene's chamber from the shadows of the hall. Seraphina stood there, lips curled into a cold, quiet smile. The storm was no longer waiting. It was already gathering. Chapter 7. Whispers of Betrayal. The moon hung low over Duskbourne Manor, casting silver veins across the stone floors and gilding the night in fragile beauty. The corridors seemed to hum with secrets, every shadow leaning close, every whisper waiting for a listener. Within that stillness, Lucian's footsteps echoed like thunder to his own ears, each step weighed down by guilt, yet guided forward by the magnetic pull of the woman he could no longer resist. Selene sat by her window, the night breeze slipping through the curtains and teasing dark strands of her hair loose. She gazed into the garden below, but her mind wasn't on the flowers or the moonlit paths. It was on him, the memory of his kiss, the way his eyes softened when they found hers, the warmth of his hand lingering against her skin long after he had gone. Every thought made her chest ache with a strange sweetness, both thrilling and perilous. She knew this love was forbidden, but she had stopped caring. The heart seldom listened to reason. A soft knock at her door startled her. She froze, breath caught in her throat, until the familiar voice came low and hesitant. "Selene." Her pulse raced. When she opened the door, Lucian stood there, shadows carving sharp lines across his face. He looked torn, guilt warring with desire in his storm-gray eyes. "I shouldn't be here," he murmured, though even as he said it, his body leaned forward, betraying him. "And yet you are," Selene whispered, a bittersweet smile gracing her lips. She stepped back, allowing him in, and when the door shut with a quiet click, it sealed more than just the room. It sealed their fate. Lucian's gaze roamed her face, her figure, as though she were both his salvation and his undoing. His fingers reached for her sleeve, brushing the fabric as if it were the most fragile thing in the world. "Every time I leave, I swear it will be the last," he confessed, voice rough with torment. "And yet," Every road brings me back to you." Selene lifted her hand to his cheek, her touch gentle, grounding. "Because your heart already knows the truth," she said softly. "You belong here." He closed the distance, his lips meeting hers. The kiss began tender, a hesitant surrender, but it deepened quickly into something fierce, something urgent. Lucian's arms enveloped her, drawing her close until she was lost in the solid warmth of him. He lifted her slightly, and her laughter, bright, breathless, mingled with his ragged sighs. The sound of it filled the room like a spark lighting tinder. Their passion unspooled slowly, then all at once, like a dam breaking. His hands traced the curve of her back, reverent but hungry, while her fingers threaded into his hair, clinging as though she would never let go. The air grew charged, thick with the rhythm of their hearts, the brush of lips and the hushed gasp of stolen desire. In that moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only them, two souls colliding against the laws of clan and blood. Yet, beyond the chamber walls, the world had not ceased at all. In the corridor, half hidden by shadow, Seraphina lingered. She had followed Lucian, suspicion gnawing at her gut, but the sight that greeted her was worse than she'd imagined. Through the slight crack of the door, she saw him, her Lucian, in Selene's arms. Their kiss was not one of passing temptation, but of deep, undeniable bond. It was love, raw and unashamed. A shiver of rage crawled through her body. Her nails curled into her palms so tightly that blood welled beneath her skin. He was mine. He was always meant to be mine. The words echoed in her mind louder than the drum of her pulse. Her chest tightened until she could hardly breathe, but her eyes, those beautiful, venomous eyes, never looked away. When Selene's laughter spilled into the air, a sound so filled with joy it pierced Seraphina's heart, something inside her broke. The serpent of envy uncoiled within her, sharp and deadly, promising vengeance. She would not weep, she would not beg, she would take back what was hers, even if it meant burning Duskborn to the ground. Quietly she stepped away, the mask of serenity slipping once more into place. Anyone who saw her now would see only poise, grace, perfection. But beneath the flawless exterior, her heart seethed with a fire that no calm smile could conceal. If love was the fire that bound Lucian and Selene, then Seraphina would become the storm that shattered it. And when the storm broke, it would not be gentle. None within the manor, not even the moonlit halls themselves, would escape the wrath that jealousy had birthed. Chapter 8. Seraphina's First Strike. The following evening, the air in Duskborn Manor was thick with a tension that no candlelight could soften. The great hall glowed with chandeliers, casting fractured prisms of gold across polished marble. The clan had gathered for a formal supper, an affair meant to soothe their fragile truce with the human world. But underneath the civility, secrets festered like wounds left untended. Lucian sat at the head of the long table, a silent storm brewing behind his calm facade. Selene, seated several chairs away, stole glances when she thought no one noticed. Their secret burned between them like a living flame, visible only to those who knew how to look. And Seraphina? Oh, she noticed everything. Draped in a gown of blood-red silk, Seraphina was a vision designed to ensnare. Her every movement was deliberate, her every glance sharpened like a dagger. Tonight, she would not wait idly in the shadows. Tonight, she would strike. With a sweet smile, she lifted her glass and spoke, her voice lilting through the hall like poisoned honey. "We must always remember," she began, her gaze fixed squarely on Lucian, "that alliances are fragile things. One crack, one betrayal, and an entire clan can crumble." The words, though veiled, struck like a whip. Lucian stiffened, his eyes narrowing. Selene's hands clenched beneath the table, knuckles white as she fought to remain composed. Whispers stirred along the length of the hall, curiosity, suspicion, the beginnings of doubt. Seraphina tilted her head, feigning innocence as she let her eyes wander deliberately to Selene. Trust, once broken, is so very hard to mend. Don't you agree, Lucian? The question dangled in the air, a blade demanding blood. Lucian's jaw tightened. He could not answer without betraying himself. Silence settled heavy, and in that silence Seraphina thrived. She sipped her wine as though nothing had been said, but her heart sang with cruel triumph. The seed of suspicion was planted. After the meal, when the guests dispersed into smaller clusters of conversation, Seraphina cornered Selene in the shadowed gallery. Her beauty in the flickering torchlight was as lethal as it was captivating, her smile sharp enough to cut. "You play a dangerous game," she whispered, circling Selene like a predator savoring its prey. "Lucian is not yours to keep. He belongs to the bloodline, to the future of our kind. You are a passing shadow." Selene's breath caught, but she stood her ground. "You may try to frighten me, Seraphina, but you'll fail. Whatever you think you own, love does not bow to bloodlines or duty." The air between them crackled, thick with the clash of their wills. Seraphina leaned close, her lips near Selene's ear. "Then pray you are strong enough to survive what's coming." With a sweep of her gown, she vanished into the hall, leaving Selene trembling, not with fear, but with fury. And far across the gallery, Lucian had seen enough to know the first blow had been dealt and the war for love and loyalty had begun. Chapter 9. The Ripple of Doubt. The aftermath of Seraphina's venomous words lingered in the manor like a stain that no fire could cleanse. By morning, the whispers had taken root, spreading from chamber to chamber as if carried on the very stone walls of Duskborn. Servants lowered their voices when Selene passed. Elders exchanged wary glances. What had been an unspoken bond between Lucian and Selene was now a shadow, a rumor given life by Seraphina's subtle strike. Lucian felt the shift in his clan like a weight pressing on his shoulders. In the council chamber, the elders spoke in veiled terms about the importance of appearances and the danger of misplaced affections. He heard their warnings, but beneath their words he recognized the echo of Seraphina's poison. Their faith in him had not shattered, but cracks had begun to show. Cracks Seraphina would pry apart with all the elegance of a wolf tearing into prey. Selene bore the brunt of it most keenly. As she walked the manicured gardens, where moonlight kissed the roses' silver, she felt eyes upon her, judging, questioning, condemning. Once welcomed as a guest, she was now an outsider, an intruder whispered about as the reason for the clan's unrest. The flowers, fragrant and lovely, offered no comfort. Even the stars seemed colder that night. Lucian sought her out beneath the willow tree by the reflecting pool, the only place where silence still felt sacred. His steps were heavy, his eyes shadowed by the burden he carried. Yet when he saw her, something inside him softened, and for a moment the mask of the Alpha slipped. "Selene," he said, voice low but taut, "I fear the walls are closing in around us." She turned to him, her face illuminated by moonlight, and though sorrow marked her features, there was fire in her gaze. "Then let them close. I would rather be caged with truth than free in a lie." He reached for her, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. His touch lingered, hesitant but longing, as though he feared she might vanish if he dared too much. "You do not understand what Seraphina is capable of. She wields her charm like a blade, and she has the elders listening. I cannot protect you from every strike." Selene met his hand with her own, clasping it against her face. "I don't need protection, Lucian. I need honesty. I need to know if what burns between us is real or if I am only another shadow in your story." The words tore something open inside him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as though the world itself sought to drag her away. Their breaths mingled, their hearts thundered in unison, and in that fragile embrace was a truth neither of them could deny. "Real?" he whispered against her hair. "Selene, it is the only real thing I have ever known." For a moment, time stilled. The pool mirrored their closeness, ripples forming as though the world itself shivered at their confession. Yet, even as their bond deepened, a shadow watched from afar. Seraphina stood at the balcony overlooking the gardens, her eyes cold as winter frost. Every stolen touch, every whispered word fueled the inferno inside her. The jealousy that had once simmered now raged unchecked. She would not let Selene steal what was rightfully hers. The clan's future depended on Lucian, and in her mind, so did her destiny. Later that night, the council gathered in secret. Seraphina, with honeyed words and feigned concern, fanned the flames of doubt she had planted. She spoke of threats to unity and the dangers of human entanglements. One by one, the elders nodded, their minds bending beneath her will. She was weaving a web, and already many had become ensnared. And so, while Lucian and Selene clung to the fragile light of their growing love, Seraphina fed the darkness that threatened to consume them. The war within the clan had begun, not with swords or blood, but with whispers and betrayal, and soon those whispers would demand a reckoning. Chapter 10. Whispers of Desire. The night was heavy with rain, soft against the glass walls of Lucian's chamber. Thunder rolled far away, but the storm inside was far louder, the storm of two souls fighting against fate, against the eyes of the clan, against the weight of tradition. Selene stood near the balcony, her silver hair catching flashes of lightning, her frame silhouetted against the restless sky. Lucian's gaze had not left her since she entered, her presence unraveling him in ways no enemy ever could. "Do you ever wonder," Selene whispered, her voice trembling with both defiance and fear, "if we are simply playing with fire?" Lucian moved closer, every step deliberate, his dark aura pressing against hers. "Every moment with you is fire," he murmured, his tone velvet but edged with hunger. "And I would burn 1,000 times over to feel it." Selene turned, her golden eyes catching his. For an instant, words were meaningless. Her lips parted slightly, and the raw intensity between them was unbearable. Lucian's hand rose, brushing her cheek, calloused fingers trembling against her softness. The storm raged louder, as though the heavens themselves bore witness to their forbidden pull. She wanted to resist. She told herself she had to resist, but her body betrayed her. Her breath quickened as Lucian leaned closer, the space between them collapsing. When their lips finally met, the kiss was not gentle. It was fierce, hungry, desperate. It was the kiss of two beings starved for one another, knowing that every stolen second tightened the noose of fate around them. The world blurred. Only heat, only heartbeat, only hunger remained. Selene's hands clutched at his chest, feeling the steady thunder of his pulse. Lucian pressed her against the cold marble wall, his body caging hers not with force but with an aching need that begged for release. "Lucian," she breathed, the sound of his name both plea and surrender. He pulled back just enough to search her eyes, his own dark and dangerous. "Say it again," he demanded, his voice thick, guttural, primal. "Lucian." The whisper melted into another kiss, hotter, deeper, reckless. Yet outside the chamber, beyond the walls, shadows moved. Seraphina lingered in the corridor, her hands clenched, nails biting into her palms until blood welled. She had followed Selene here, her instincts guiding her to the truth she feared and despised. And now, with every muffled sound from within, with every shift of passion echoing faintly through the stone, her fury twisted into something darker. Desire had turned to poison. The storm outside roared on, but inside the walls of House Duskbane, another storm was about to break, one born not of love, but of jealousy sharpened into vengeance. That was the word she tasted on her tongue as she stood on her balcony, staring down at the courtyard below. Betrayal not just of her claim, but of the clan's traditions. She had given years of loyalty, of patience, of hidden longing, believing that Lucian would one day choose her as both partner and equal. And now her patience was rewarded with humiliation. Her smile was cold as winter as she whispered to the morning wind, "I will not be forgotten. I will not be cast aside for her." From that moment, Seraphina's vow was sealed in steel. She walked among the clan that day with the grace of a queen and the heart of a viper. Her words dripped like honey, carefully chosen, calculated. To the warriors sharpening their blades, she murmured questions about Lucian's focus. To the council elders, she wondered aloud if Selene's blood was truly pure enough for their future. And to the servants whose tongues carried whispers faster than fire, she sowed subtle doubts cloaked in feigned concern. Seeds of suspicion rooted quickly, glances sharpened, conversations stilled when Selene entered. No one dared voice outright accusations, but silence grew louder than words. Selene felt it immediately, the shift in the air, the weight of eyes trailing her steps. The warmth of the clan's acceptance, once so steady, now felt like ice pressing against her skin. The courtyard, once a place of peace, seemed heavy with shadows of judgment. Invisible chains began to wind themselves around her, binding her in ways no physical prison could. Chapter 11. Seraphina's vow morning broke over the Duskbane estate with deceptive calm, golden light spilling across the towering spires and ancient stonework that had witnessed centuries of triumphs, betrayals, and blood. The estate looked eternal, unshaken by time. Yet within its walls the foundations trembled with secrets that could undo it all. Selene awoke in her chamber, heart still raw with the memory of the night before, the taste of Lucian's lips, the warmth of his hands on her skin, the reckless fire that had consumed them. She sat before her mirror, braiding her hair with trembling fingers, as though binding each strand could restrain the storm rising inside her. She searched her own reflection for answers. Her face was the same as yesterday, yet it wasn't. Her eyes held a glimmer of something dangerous, something that spoke of desires no oath could smother. She knew she was changed forever, and there was no going back. Lucian moved through the great hall like a shadow made flesh, every step heavy with the weight of unspoken truth. His warriors greeted him with nods, but he barely noticed. His mind replayed the night over and over, until her scent clung to his lungs like a curse. He had survived battles against rival packs, stood unyielding before blades and claws, but now he felt undone by one woman's touch. The fire she had awakened in him was no passing hunger. It was a hunger that threatened to burn through his oath, through his duty, through the very legacy of the Duskbane line. And elsewhere, watching them both with eyes like sharpened obsidian, Seraphina awoke to a darker dawn. She had seen enough the previous night, the glances, the lingering closeness, the undeniable pull between them. Betrayal. Lucian noticed too. He felt the undercurrent of unease, and knew it was no accident. His gaze often found Seraphina's, and in her poised smiles, in her careful bows of deference, he sensed something coiled and dangerous beneath. He did not yet know the depths of her vow, but he felt the storm gathering. As dusk bled into night, the sky burned with crimson fire, streaked with shadows that seemed almost alive. Selene stood on her balcony clutching the rail, wondering if she had doomed them all. Lucian, pacing his chambers, battled his own torment, the pull between duty and desire, between legacy and the dangerous flame he shared with her. And in her private chambers, Seraphina leaned against the window with a goblet of wine, watching the estate's lights flicker like watchful eyes. Her vow had taken root, and it thrilled her. If she could not claim Lucian's love, then she would claim his ruin. Let the clan bleed, let the night run red with betrayal, she would see it through. Her heart had been scorned, and now it beat with vengeance. The first whispers had been planted. Soon they would grow into roars. The war for Lucian's heart had begun, not in passion's embrace, but in the shadowed corridors of ambition, jealousy, and whispered war. Chapter 12. Whispers of War. The night pressed close against the Duskbane estate, shadows coiling in every corner as though listening for secrets. Within the grand hall, Lucian sat at the head of the long table, his hands clasped before him, eyes hard with a quiet storm. Around him, elders and warriors gathered, their voices low and restless. It was Seraphina who had called this council, draped in silks that shimmered like moonlight, her smile sharp enough to cut. Selene stood at the far end of the chamber, her presence a flame that refused to be dimmed despite the chill of scrutiny. She felt the weight of every gaze, every unspoken doubt. The whispers had spread faster than fire in dry grass, of her blood, her place, her influence over Lucian. She had not asked for such power, but now it threatened to consume her. Seraphina rose with practiced grace, her voice smooth as velvet but laced with steel. We live in an age where human eyes see too much, where our survival depends on unity and strength, and yet... Her eyes flicked to Selene, cold and deliberate. We gamble that strength on the loyalty of one who is not wholly ours. A murmur rippled through the hall. Lucian's jaw tightened, but before he could speak, an elder cleared his throat. The whispers trouble me, Lucian. We cannot afford division. The humans circle closer every day. If we falter now, we will not falter, Lucian interrupted, his voice thunderous, echoing against the vaulted ceiling. He rose, every inch the heir of the Duskbane clan, his presence commanding. Selene has proven her loyalty 100 times over. She has bled beside us, fought beside us. Question her again, and you question me. The hall fell silent. Selene's breath caught in her chest, torn between gratitude and dread. His defense of her was fierce, but it painted a target on them both. Seraphina's smile did not waver. If anything, it deepened, a serpent coiling tighter. Then let it be known, she said softly, her words sinking like poison, that the fate of the Duskbane rests on your chosen devotion. The council ended, but the fractures remained. Later, beneath the cold gaze of the moon, Selene found Lucian in the gardens, his shoulders bowed as though carrying centuries of weight. She touched his arm, and he turned to her, eyes blazing with both fury and longing. "They doubt you," he said, his voice low, almost broken. "They doubt us. And I—" His hand brushed her cheek, hesitant yet hungry. "I cannot let them tear you from me." Her heart ached, torn between love and fear. "And if holding on to me means tearing the clan apart?" she whispered. He pulled her close, his lips hovering against hers, a storm waiting to break, then let the world burn. From the shadows beyond the hedge, unseen, Seraphina watched and smiled. Chapter 13. Shadows at the Gate. The days that followed the council were drenched in unease. The Duskbane estate, once a fortress of order, had become a nest of whispers and suspicion. Servants paused mid-task when Selene passed, Warriors shared glances sharp as blades, and the air itself seemed taut with something waiting to snap. Lucian threw himself into training, his body a blur of power and precision in the sparring yard. Every strike of his blade against an opponent's echoed his frustration, every parry a denial of doubt. Yet even the clash of steel could not drown the voices of dissent that spread through the clan like wildfire. He was their heir, their strength, their anchor, and now, to some, their weakness. All because of her. Selene kept to the gardens when she could, the only place where the stairs softened. Yet even here, under the silver wash of the moon, peace eluded her. She felt the clan's tension pressing against her skin like a brand. Every word Seraphina had spoken gnawed at her heart, not wholly ours. It was true, wasn't it? She would never be like them, never belong fully. And yet, she belonged to him, and that thought both terrified and thrilled her. It was in the gardens that he found her, sweat still gleaming on his skin from the yard, his shirt discarded, his breath uneven. She had not meant to stare, but the sight of him unraveled her restraint. His strength was undeniable, but it was his eyes, stormy, unguarded, that held her captive. "Selene," he said, voice hoarse with the rawness of training and something deeper. "Do you know what it costs me to keep my hands from you in front of them? To hold back when every part of me wants—" His words faltered, but his gaze spoke volumes. She swallowed hard, heat rising to her cheeks. "You think I don't feel it too? Every glance, every stolen moment. It's torture, Lucian. They see it in us. They'll use it against us." He stepped closer, so near she could feel the heat radiating from his body. His hand reached, trembling slightly, until his fingers brushed hers. A spark ignited, small but searing. "Let them," he whispered, voice low and dangerous. "I will not let them dictate what's mine." Her breath caught. His nearness was intoxicating, but fear coiled in her chest. "And if Seraphina forces your hand? If the elders demand a choice?" His jaw clenched, but he did not let go. Instead, he pulled her into him, so close their foreheads touched. "Then they will learn what it means to challenge me, what it means to threaten you." Their lips brushed, not yet a kiss, but the tension of it was unbearable. The world seemed to narrow to that fragile line between restraint and surrender. And then, the distant howl, a sound that froze them both. Not the call of their clan, but something foreign, something wrong. It echoed again, long and guttural, reverberating through the night. Instinct surged in Lucian, his body tensing, every sense alert. "They're here," he said, voice taut with recognition. "Rogues." The spell between them shattered, replaced by the crackle of danger. Selene's pulse quickened as the estate erupted into chaos. Warriors rushing, alarms ringing, shadows moving beyond the gates. And somewhere in that chaos, Seraphina's silken laughter drifted like a ghost, as though she had been waiting for this moment. Selene grasped Lucian's arm, her voice fierce. "Then we fight, together." He looked at her, torn between fear and pride, before nodding once. The air smelled of blood already, though none had been spilled. The war at their gates was no accident. It was the echo of choices, of love, of envy, and as the howls grew nearer, the bond between them burned brighter, daring the night to break it. Chapter 14. Shadows at Dawn. The night bled into dawn with a heavy silence that weighed on every rooftop and every cobblestone in the city. The Ainsworth clan mansion stood like a fortress of wealth and secrecy, but its walls now trembled beneath the mounting storm. Lucian stood by the balcony of his chamber, his broad frame silhouetted by the orange wash of the rising sun. His hands gripped the railing, knuckles pale, as if holding the world together. Behind him, Selene stirred from the velvet sheets, the curve of her form bathed in gold light. Her presence was both a comfort and a danger. She was his anchor, but also the spark that could ignite the fire consuming them all. He turned to her, his eyes shadowed with conflict. "They're gathering, Selene. Seraphina has moved faster than I anticipated. The elders whisper that you're not to be trusted, that you've bewitched me." His jaw tightened. "If they believe her, if they turn against you." Selene rose slowly, the silk of her nightgown clinging to her body, her eyes finding his with fierce determination. "Let them believe what they will. I am not afraid of whispers. What I fear is losing you." Her words carved through the tension, striking something raw within him. He crossed the room in a heartbeat, cupping her face as though she were the last light in a world drowning in shadow. His kiss was desperate, a mingling of hunger and fear, his hands pulling her closer until the rest of the world vanished. But outside, the world had not vanished. It waited. The courtyard below was alive with murmurs as wolves gathered, their human forms cloaked in dark coats, their eyes burning with suspicion. Seraphina moved among them like a queen in exile, her beauty a mask for the venom she dripped into every ear. She spoke of betrayal, of the danger Selene represented, and her words spread like wildfire. By the time the elders arrived, figures draped in crimson robes, their presence commanding silence, the air crackled with tension. The dawn had brought no peace, only judgment. Inside, Selene pressed her forehead to Lucian's chest, listening to the steady drum of his heartbeat. "We cannot let them tear us apart," she whispered. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Lucian closed his eyes, holding her as though anchoring himself against the storm. He knew that before this day ended, love and loyalty would be tested in blood, and somewhere, in the shifting light of dawn, Seraphina's smile glinted like the edge of a knife. Chapter 15. The Trial of Hearts. The great hall of the Ainsworth mansion had never felt so suffocating. The crystal chandeliers dripped with golden light, but their brilliance could not warm the air. It was brittle, sharp, as if made of glass about to shatter. The polished marble floors reflected every flicker of firelight, every restless movement of the wolves gathered in judgment. At the center, Lucian stood tall, his dark coat flowing around him like the night itself. Beside him, Selene walked with a quiet grace, her eyes lifted, unflinching despite the dozens that glared her way. The weight of suspicion pressed against her skin like chains, but she would not bow. Not when Lucian's hand brushed hers, steady and silent, reminding her she was not alone. The elders, draped in crimson robes, took their seats at the long obsidian table. Their eyes, ancient and merciless, swept over the pair. At the head of the table, Elder Kyle leaned forward, his voice a low rumble that commanded the silence of the hall. "Lucian Ainsworth, heir to the clan, you stand accused of betraying your bloodline. And you, Selene Duval, accused of weaving your mortal charms to weaken him, to endanger us all. What do you say before judgment?" A hush fell, broken only by the faint rustle of Seraphina's gown as she stepped forward from the shadows. Her smile was honey laced with venom. "Elders, I have seen it with my own eyes. This woman has ensnared him. His loyalty wavers, his strength falters. If we trust her, we doom ourselves." She cast a triumphant glance at Selene, her eyes shimmering with false sorrow. "Would you gamble the future of our kind on a stranger's embrace?" Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves, uncertainty gnawing at their unity. Doubt was Seraphina's greatest weapon, and she wielded it with cruel precision. Lucian's jaw hardened. He stepped forward, his voice a growl that shook the hall. "Do not speak of things you cannot understand, Seraphina. My loyalty has never wavered. My strength does not falter because of Selene, it grows. She is no stranger. She is my heart. His gaze swept the hall, meeting every pair of suspicious eyes. And if you think love weakens me, then you know nothing of strength. Selene's breath caught in her chest. His words burned away some of the cold, but she knew it was not enough. The elders' faces remained carved from stone, unreadable. Elder Kyle's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp as steel. And yet, your heart is a dangerous luxury, Lucian. Love has broken empires. It has slaughtered kingdoms. Why should we believe your love will not break us? Selene stepped forward before Lucian could answer, her voice steady, her words like threads weaving through the hall. Because love is not the enemy. Fear is. Fear will drive you to mistrust, to devour yourselves from within. You speak of survival, but survival means nothing without hope, without bonds stronger than blood. I do not ask for your trust, only for your time. Let me prove that my place here is not a curse, but a gift. The hall stirred again, torn between belief and doubt. Seraphina's eyes flared with fury, though her lips kept their calm smile. She had expected Selene to shrink beneath the weight of the trial, but instead the mortal woman stood like fire in the midst of ice. Lucian reached for her hand, not caring that the gesture scandalized half the hall. His fingers entwined with hers, grounding them both as he turned back to the elders. Judge us if you will, but know this, I will not cast her aside. If you choose to exile her, you will exile me as well. Gasps rippled across the hall like a wave breaking against stone. Even the elders exchanged glances, the crack in their composure evident. The silence stretched, thick and endless. And then Elder Kael spoke again, his tone heavy, unreadable. Very well. You shall have your time, Lucian Ainsworth, but understand this. If your love proves a weakness, if the clan suffers for it, it will be Selene's blood that answers for it, and perhaps yours as well. The decree settled over them like a storm cloud, dark and inescapable. Lucian tightened his hold on Selene, his eyes never leaving the elders. So be it, he said, voice ringing with defiance. As the council dismissed, Seraphina lingered by the doorway, her gaze locking onto Selene's. No words were spoken, but her smile promised war. The trial had ended, but the battle had only just begun. That night, as the mansion fell into uneasy silence, Lucian drew Selene into his arms beneath the moonlight, their kiss fierce, desperate, a vow whispered between their hearts. Whatever storms were coming, they would stand together. And in the shadows, unseen, Seraphina's laughter curled like smoke, patient and cruel, waiting for her chance to strike. Chapter 16. Shadows of Betrayal. The council chamber still trembled from the echoes of Lucian's defiance. Selene stood close to him, her hand brushing against his, so slight, so forbidden, yet grounding him in the storm. The elders, their gazes heavy with centuries of judgment, murmured among themselves like ravens perched on a dying tree. The weight of their doubt pressed on the air, suffocating, but Lucian's eyes never strayed from Selene's face. She was his anchor, his fire. He would not bend. Seraphina watched from the shadows, her lips curved into a cruel smile that didn't reach her eyes. She had played her part masterfully, seeding whispers of Selene's danger to the clan, stoking old fears until they blazed bright in the elders' minds. But whispers, she knew, were not enough. Not anymore. If Selene survived this night unscathed, she would grow roots in Lucian's heart too deep for any blade to sever. And so Seraphina plotted something darker. Later that night, as the council dismissed with no verdict, the clan dispersed into the cool embrace of the forest. Lucian pulled Selene away into the labyrinth of trees where moonlight streamed in silver ribbons. The scent of pine and earth mingled with the electric pull between them. He touched her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. His voice was low, fierce, trembling. "You don't know what you've done to me, Selene. I would burn this whole clan to ash before letting them take you from me." Her breath hitched, both from fear and longing. She wanted to tell him he was her world too, that she had dreamt of his face long before she set foot in this cursed forest. But the words tangled on her tongue, bound by the terror of what they risked. Instead, she pressed closer, her lips hovering a breath from his. The stolen kiss they shared was fire and ruin, a promise written in shadows. Yet even as they clung to each other, unseen eyes watched. The following night, Seraphina made her move. She summoned 2 loyal clansmen with debts too deep to refuse her call. In hushed tones beneath the shadow of ancient oaks, she gave them their command: lead Selene into the woods under pretense of protection, then ensure she never returned. To the clan, it would be a tragedy, a human too fragile for their world, a fate sealed by the forest itself. But Seraphina would know the truth, and Lucian, broken by grief, would come crawling back to her. But fate was not so easily twisted. When the 2 clansmen approached Selene at dawn, claiming Lucian had sent them to guide her to safety, she hesitated only a moment. Her trust in Lucian's name outweighed her instinct to flee. The path they took wound deeper and deeper into the heart of the forest, where the canopy thickened and the air grew cold with secrets. Selene's unease sharpened when their eyes flickered too often toward each other, their silence heavy with intent. It was then that a low growl split the air. Lucian. He had tracked her scent, had followed the uneasy beat of her absence, his wolf rising to the surface with violent urgency. He burst into the path with eyes glowing like embers, his presence shattering the ambush. The clansmen froze, their betrayal exposed under his gaze. Selene stumbled back, relief and terror flooding her at once. Lucian's voice was a snarl edged in steel. "You dare touch her?" The forest itself seemed to recoil as he advanced, his wolf form rippling beneath his skin. The traders shifted in panic, but they were no match for Lucian's wrath. The air filled with the crack of branches, the guttural clash of fangs, and Selene's cry as she watched violence unfold before her eyes. When silence finally fell, Lucian stood over the fallen men, his chest heaving, his mouth stained with the evidence of his fury. He turned to Selene, and in his eyes was not the monster the clan feared, but the man who had risked everything to save her. She fell into his arms trembling, tears streaking her cheeks. He held her tight, his whispered vow fierce against her hair. "They will never touch you, not while I live, not while I breathe." From the shadows of the forest, Seraphina watched again. This time her plan lay in ruins, but her hatred only deepened. If brute force could not separate them, she would strike where hearts bled deepest. She would unravel them from within. And as the moon crested above, the true war for Lucian's love had only just begun. Chapter 17, The Serpent's Bite. The night was velvet dark when Seraphina struck. The clan's estate, usually alive with the quiet hum of wealth and order, seemed unnaturally still, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. In that silence, Seraphina moved like liquid shadow, every step deliberate, every glance sharpened by hatred. For weeks she had fed her venom into the elders' ears, whispering of treachery, of forbidden love that endangered their secrecy. Tonight, the seeds she had sown would sprout into poison. In the council chamber, she unfurled her final trap, a bloodied scrap of cloth and a silver blade. Both were lies carefully staged, soaked in the scent of Selene's blood. She laid them on the long oak table, her eyes gleaming like coals. "Proof," she hissed, her voice silken and deadly. "The human has betrayed us. She lured Lucian into weakness, and now hunters stalk our borders." The elders murmured uneasily. They had heard rumors of hunters moving too close, of eyes in the shadows. Fear was a wildfire, and Seraphina had become its match. She painted Selene as the flame that would consume them all. But as the council whispered, Lucian burst into the chamber, his presence a thunderclap. Tall, fierce, his eyes burned with fury. "Lies," he growled, his voice reverberating like stone cracking. "Selene has done nothing but bring me strength. She is no traitor, she is mine." Gasps echoed around the chamber. To claim her openly was to shatter centuries of law, to spit in the face of tradition. But Lucian's chest rose and fell with unshakable conviction, and his gaze dared any elder to deny him. Seraphina smiled coldly, victory twisting her lips. "Yours?" she purred. "Then you condemn yourself with her. For love of a human you would drag us all into ruin." She turned to the elders, her voice a siren's song. "You see? His own words bind him. The fate of the clan cannot rest in the hands of a lovesick fool." Selene, hidden in the doorway, felt her heart pound like a drum. Every word was a blade cutting her deeper, yet when Lucian's eyes found hers, the world stilled. In that glance was fire, was defiance, was the vow of a man who would burn kingdoms before yielding her. The elders' voices rose, some calling for Selene's banishment, others for Lucian's punishment. The chamber quaked with discord, and then Seraphina struck the final blow. She accused Selene of conspiring with the hunters, claiming to have seen her in the woods, whispering to a stranger cloaked in silver. The image was damning, false yet painted with such conviction that doubt spread like rot. Selene could remain silent no longer. She stepped into the chamber, her courage a trembling flame but steady nonetheless. "You lie, Seraphina," she said, her voice steady though her knees threatened to give way. "I have spoken to no hunters. I have betrayed no one. My only crime is loving him, and if that damns me, then let me be damned with honor." The chamber fell to silence. Her words hung in the air like a bell's last toll. For a heartbeat, even the elders seemed struck. Lucian crossed the room, standing at her side, his hand brushing hers, a fleeting touch, yet electric, sealing their unity before the eyes of all. "If you condemn her, you condemn me. And if you cast us out, know this: we will not bow, we will not crawl. We will fight." The air thickened with the weight of the choice before them. The clan balanced on a knife's edge, and Seraphina's smile widened, for in her heart she knew, even if Lucian won this battle, the war she had unleashed had only just begun. And far beyond the chamber walls in the darkened forest, real hunters stirred, drawn not by Selene's betrayal, but by the scent of weakness within the clan. Chapter 18. Shadows at the gate. Night fell heavy over the Blackthorn estate, but within its walls chaos reigned. The whispers that Seraphina had carefully sown now roared into a storm, spilling through corridors like wildfire. She had painted Selene as the harbinger of doom, the human weakness that would expose the clan to hunters. And the elders, frightened and weary, had turned their gaze toward Lucian, toward the defiance burning too brightly in his eyes. It was enough. Seraphina had won the council's ear, and Lucian knew in that moment, as the gavel of ancient judgment struck down upon him, that if he did not leave, Selene would not survive the night. He found her in the west wing, where shadows cloaked her trembling form. She stood by the window, her breath clouding the glass, her face pale against the silver wash of moonlight. When he entered, her eyes widened, not with fear, but with the quiet, unyielding trust that had undone him from the start. "They've decided," he said, his voice low, every word edged with urgency. "They want you gone, not just exiled. Selene, they want your blood." Her breath caught, but she did not cry out. Instead, she straightened, lifting her chin in that quiet, stubborn defiance he adored. "Then let them come. I won't beg for my life. "Damn it, Selene," Lucian growled, closing the space between them. He caught her shoulders, felt the tremor that rippled through her frame, and pressed his forehead to hers. "I won't let them touch you. Not while I draw breath." Their lips hovered a breath apart, desire and fear coiled together. He could taste the words unsaid, feel her heart racing against his chest, but there was no time. Beyond the door, footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate, the guards of the elders. "We run," Lucian whispered, fingers lacing through hers. "Now," and so they fled. Through hidden passages carved into the bones of the estate, through hallways drenched in memory and betrayal. The air grew colder, sharper. Selene stumbled once, and Lucian caught her against him, holding her closer than he dared before. Her breath fanned against his neck, her fear palpable, but beneath it lay something else, an undeniable, unshaken tether. Even hunted, she trusted him, and in that trust he found strength. They reached the gates, only to find shadows already waiting. Human shadows, hunters. Their weapons glinted under the pale moonlight, cruel iron and silver, aimed at the heart of every wolf. Selene froze. "Lucian!" He pulled her behind him, his own form rippling, bones reshaping, muscles stretching as the wolf within answered the call of danger. His eyes burned gold, his teeth bared. But even in the throes of his transformation, his hand never left hers. Hunters and wolves, betrayal and love. All paths converged at the gate. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his voice deeper now, threaded with the growl of his beast. Selene, breathless, pressed her palm against his back, as though her touch alone could shield him, always. And in that single word, that vow whispered into the night, Lucian felt the fire of both war and love ignite within him. He would fight them all, hunters, elders, even fate itself, if it meant Selene lived to see another dawn. The clash began with the first arrow loosed. The night screamed with iron, with teeth, with blood. And in the heart of it all, Lucian and Selene moved as one, bound by a love that defied the darkness. But as the gates groaned beneath the weight of battle, and as Seraphina's laughter echoed from the tower above, one truth became clear. This was only the beginning of the end. Chapter 19. The Breaking Storm. The night fell heavy over the Blackthorn estate, the air charged with the scent of rain and blood. For days, whispers had festered in the halls, of betrayal, of forbidden love, of danger clawing at the clan's gates. Now, those whispers rose into a roar. The elders gathered in the great chamber, their eyes burning with suspicion, and at the center of it all stood Seraphina, dressed in silken black, her lips curved in triumph. "Lucian has betrayed us," she declared, her voice slicing through the murmurs like a blade. "He has chosen an outsider, Selene, a stranger with no loyalty to our kind. Because of him, the hunters know our weaknesses. Because of him, we bleed." The room erupted. Shouts, growls, the shuffle of boots as warriors pressed forward. Selene, standing just behind Lucian, felt their rage like knives against her skin. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but Lucian's hand brushed against hers, steady, grounding. His golden eyes burned with fury as he stepped into the storm. "You dare accuse me?" Lucian's voice thundered. "I bled for this clan, I led its hunts, I defended its borders, and now you would turn on me, because I refuse to let fear decide who I can love." The word love echoed through the chamber, more dangerous than any confession of crime. The elders stiffened. Some looked away, ashamed. Others sneered. Seraphina only smiled, serpent-like, knowing she had driven the blade exactly where she wanted. Love? she purred, or lust that will destroy us all? You would risk centuries of survival for the embrace of a human born? Selene's heart clenched. Every eye turned to her, some hungry for blood, others uncertain. She straightened her spine, refusing to cower. I am no enemy, she said, her voice calm though her pulse thundered. I came here with no weapon but my heart. If you strike me down, you strike down the chance for something greater than fear. But if you cast me aside, know that your true enemy waits beyond these walls. As if summoned by her words, the alarm bells tolled, 3 deep strikes that shook the chamber. The doors burst open and a bloodied guard stumbled inside. Hunters, he gasped. They've found us. They're at the gate. Chaos erupted. Elders barked orders, warriors scrambled for weapons, and the chamber's tension shattered into panic. Seraphina's smile faltered. This was not part of her plan. But Lucian seized the moment, his voice cutting through the madness. You see? He shouted, drawing his blade. The threat is not within, it is without. Stand with me or fall divided. For the first time, Selene saw him in his full glory, not just the man she loved, but the Alpha he was born to be. His presence rallied those who had wavered. Growls turned to chants, fear turned to fire, and then the storm broke. The gate splintered under the hunter's assault. Arrows streaked through the night, flames licked the air, and the once proud halls of Blackthorn shook with war. Amid the chaos, Lucian seized Selene's hand, pulling her close. Stay with me, he whispered fiercely. No matter what happens, stay! Her breath caught, her chest burning with love and fear in equal measure. She nodded, their fingers intertwining as the world crashed around them. In that moment, they were no longer fugitives, no longer divided. They were fire and shadow, love and defiance, standing together against the breaking storm. Chapter 20. Moonlit. Reckoning the battlefield lay drenched in silver light, the full moon casting its pale glow over the ruined courtyard of the Valamont estate. Smoke curled from shattered torches, and the air was heavy with blood and betrayal. The clan, once bound by centuries of unity, now fractured under Seraphina's venomous schemes and the hunter's relentless assault. Lucian stood at the heart of the chaos, his chest heaving, torn between the snarling remnants of his kin and the circle of hunters tightening their noose. His wolf form shimmered beneath his skin, but his eyes sought only one thing: Selene. She stood at the far side, her white gown torn, her hair wild in the moonlight, the defiance in her gaze burning brighter than any flame. Her presence alone steadied him, even as the world crumbled. Seraphina, blood streaking her lips, emerged from the shadows with a smile both triumphant and tragic. You see, brother, the clan bends to me now. They are tired of your weakness, tired of your love for her. She spat the last word as if it were poison. Lucian's voice was low, thunder rumbling beneath it. This is not strength, Seraphina, it's ruin. You've brought hunters to our gates, bled our people, and for what? A throne built on ash? Her laughter rang sharp, for survival, for power, something you never had the courage to seize. You let her finger stabbed toward Selene, cloud your judgment, and now you will watch everything burn. Before Lucian could answer, the hunters surged forward, silver blades flashing. Wolves leapt to meet them, claws raking steel, cries splitting the night. Selene darted through the chaos, her breath ragged, until she reached Lucian's side. For a moment, in the midst of fury, time slowed. You have to choose, she whispered, gripping his arm, her eyes wide with desperation. Them, or us. Your clan, or you, Lucian finished, his voice breaking. His hand cupped her cheek, rough and trembling. It has always been you. Their lips met, fierce and desperate, a kiss born from the edge of death. Around them, the world burned, But for that heartbeat, there was only the taste of love and the weight of eternity. Then Seraphina struck. A silver dagger glinting under the moon arced toward Selene's back. Lucian's wolf erupted within him, and with a roar that shook the night, he threw himself into the blade's path. The steel sank into his side, agony searing, but his arms locked around his sister, wrenching the weapon from her grasp. His golden eyes bore into hers. "No more," he growled. "This ends tonight." Their struggle was brutal, primal. Wolf against wolf, blood against blood. Seraphina fought with all the fury of betrayal, her claws tearing into him, her screams echoing through the courtyard. But Lucian's strength was not his alone. It was fueled by Selene's touch, her voice crying his name, the promise of a love worth bleeding for. With one final, shuddering strike, he drove Seraphina to the ground, the moonlight falling cold upon her defeated form. Silence spread, broken only by the ragged breaths of the survivors. The hunters, their leader fallen in the melee, retreated into the forest's darkness. The clan, bloodied and broken, turned their eyes to Lucian, not as the Alpha they had doubted, but as the leader who had fought, bled, and chosen love in the face of ruin. Lucian swayed, pain coursing through him, until Selene caught him, her arms fierce and unyielding. "Stay with me," she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. "Please, Lucian, don't you dare leave me now." He smiled, faint but unshakable. "The moon gave me you, and I would walk through fire again for that gift." As dawn bled into the horizon, casting gold over the wreckage, the clan began to gather. Some knelt, not in submission, but in quiet acknowledgement. A new era had begun, one not of fear, but of fragile hope. Together, Lucian and Selene stood at the threshold of it, battered but unbroken. And in that moment, beneath the fading stars, they knew their love had not only saved them, but had reshaped the destiny of the Valamont wolves forever. Thank you for listening. Enjoyed the twists, the romance, and the heart-pounding moments? Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I will love to hear from you. Your support keeps these stories alive and fuels even more thrilling adventures. Stay tuned, because more captivating tales, filled with love, danger, and mystery, are coming your way. You won't want to miss what's next.